Hello, good morning, friends. In this class of political science, we are going to be familiar with the basic features of the Constitution. Now, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and every other law must be in accordance with it. The Constitution itself starts with we the people. But what is the image that comes into one's mind when you hear the word the Constitution? The general image of the Constitution comes as a big bulky book having a lot of laws written into it. Well, this is actually true in the context of Indian Constitution because it is the world's lengthiest written constitution. India's constitution is the biggest. It is a bulky book in reality. But why? There are basically three reasons behind the bulkiness, behind this elephantine size of the Indian constitution. First reason is that the founding fathers of our nation saw this thing and accepted this thing that India is a group of multiple diverse groups. India has people from every community, and India is a country of diversity. And to cater for the needs of this diversity, the founding fathers of our nation decided to provide for it in the constitution itself. And the second reason behind the length of the Indian constitution is that apart from the common governance, the administrative proceedings, fundamental laws are also being given in the constitution itself, just to make sure that in future there is no confusion between the union and the states. The third reason behind this kind of big size of the Indian constitution is that there is only one constitution for the union and the states. There is no other constitution. One constitution is accepted throughout the country. It is vital to know that in the United States of America, every state of America has its own constitution. They are more or less the same with minor alteration, but the Constitution of the United States of America is the smallest constitution in the world, having only 7 articles written in it. While Indian Constitution, the beginning, has 395 articles with 22 parts and 8 schedules. Only one state, the erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir state, had its own constitution, but with the deletion of Article 370, that provision has been also dealt away with. Now there is only one constitution for the whole country. Second point is that the Indian constitution is drawn from various sources. It is vital to understand that the Indian constitution was being written very late in the history. It was 1947 and the work ended in 1950. Many constitutions had been already written, and the constitution makers of our country decided to examine, thoroughly analyze various constitutions of the world because many philosophies and fundamental points were already in the prevalence. But they were very cautious about using these, and every theory, every philosophy, and every detail was analyzed and then modeled according to the needs of India. All of the provisions were tested in and under the circumstances that were prevalent in India, and then they were modeled to cater the needs for the Indian people. There is a long list, but just to know that the structural part of the constitution was taken from Government of India Act 1935, the directive principles and state policies were taken from the Irish Constitution, and the concept of fundamental rights was taken from the United States of America. Moving forward, blend of rigidity and flexibility. It is highly imperative to understand that when a constitution is being written, when a fundamental law is being written, it it is something that one has to accept that down the line, in some years or in some decades, there may be some new kind of conditions, there may be new situations, and there may be new demands of the society. What may seem more logical and the need for the society at this point may not be true down the line after a few decades. So there has to be some scope for amendments, and this scope decides whether the constitution is flexible or rigid. In India, the Indian constitution has a blend of both rigidity and flexibility, as some part of the constitution can be amended easily while the other part requires a very hard procedure. It is also vital to understand that the United States Constitution is the most rigid in the world, being forced for within like 240 years, but It has been amended only 27 times, while the English constitution is way too easy, and it is the most flexible constitution that can be changed with very ordinary processes. Indian constitution has been amended for more than 100 times in its previous almost 70 years. Moving forward, the fourth point here, the federal system with unitary bias. The father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, believed that the real democracy lies with the villages, and the villages should be made the republic themselves. He was an advocate of grassroots democracy, and if our founding fathers of the nation, of the framers of the constitution, decided to make three-tier government in India. In the federal system, there are mostly two-tier of government: the state government, the union government. But in India, apart from the union government and the state governments, the central government and the state governments, the local body of administrations were also provided for. These local bodies of administrations, this local government, for example, are the Panchayati Raj system and also the municipalities. But it has unitary bias. That means that more powers have been aligned and allocated to the union than the rest of the two tiers. Fifth is the parliamentary form of government. For a long time, India was ruled by the British for the interest of Britain. But while doing so, some sort of parliamentary form of government was introduced in India, and the Indians were familiar with the parliamentary forum. So at the time of the writing of the constitution, it was decided that it would be useless to adopt a newer kind of the form of government while we were, and some sort of the masses were also familiar with the parliamentary form of the government. India was to be a democracy, but there are multiple forms of government in democracy, like the presidential system, the direct democracy system, constitutional monarchy system, and the parliamentary form. We were familiar with the parliamentary forum and it was adopted. There are some attributes of the parliamentary forum, and these are the presence of the nominal and real executive, such as the president, who only approves the decision, and the real executive, the cabinet, that takes the decision. Majority party rule: the party that scores more than 50% of the seats gets to form the government, and the leader of this party becomes the prime minister. The cabinet, the executive, is also collectively responsible to the legislature, as it has to answer and give reasons for whatever it is doing in the parliament. The next basic feature of our constitution is the synthesis of parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. It is enough to know that the concept of parliamentary sovereignty is a concept of England, where the parliament can do whatever it likes, and the judicial supremacy is the concept of America, where the judges play a huge role in the forming of the law. In India, we have a synthesis of both. While the parliament is free in its own spirit to make multiple laws, but the laws that goes against the constitution can be declared unconstitutional by the judiciary. Integrated and independent judiciary. India has a judiciary that is integrated. To avoid any sort of confusion, there is only one law and one hierarchy of the judiciary. We have district courts, then high courts, and the apex court, the Supreme Court. There has been also a lot of safeguards to protect the independence of the judiciary, such as the safety of the tenure, the safety of the promotion, the safety of the salary, and also to keep the appointment of the judges away from the political interference. Point number 7 is the fundamental rights from Article 14 to Article 32. There have been various fundamental rights. These rights were mostly taken from the United States Constitution, but also modeled according to the needs of the country. At the beginning, there were 7 fundamental rights, but at this point, there are only 6, as the right to property has been dealt away with. These fundamental rights includes, list is not exhaustive, but it includes the right to equality, the right to freedom, the right to freedom of religion, there are right against exploitation, there is right to life, there is right to education, there are safeguards of minorities, and there are Article 32 that declares the right to constitutional remedies. The right itself says that if someone is violating your laws, you can actually seek the help of the Supreme Court. That takes us to our point number 8, the emergency provisions. There are 3 types of emergency. Like a war against a foreign nation, there can be failure of the constitutional machinery in a state, and there can also be a threat, an imminent threat to the credit and money management of the country. There have been provisions given explicitly in the constitution to deal with these situations. Universal adult franchise means that every adult living in India, citizen of India, with an age up or of 18, has a right to vote. Universal adult franchise is also sometimes known as universal adult suffrage. It was one of the boldest decisions of our constitution makers, because at the time when they were actually writing this in the constitution, most of Indian population was illiterate. But they were still very firm in this belief that all Indians are equal. Point number 10 is a secular state. The founding fathers of our nation believed and accepted this fact that there were contributions and contributors from every community of the country, be it religious community, casteist community, ethnic community, linguistic community, or even the tribal people. Even they played their role. And they decided to give respect to all of them, and it was decided that India will not prioritize one religion. In the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the Indian constitution, every religion is equal. Every person is given this free right, given this right to freely profess any religion or practice any religion, or even not to profess or believe in any religion, be an atheist. Even that is protected by the state. It is said that India will be a secular state. India will be a secular state with having no official religion and will never discriminate on the basis of religion. I hope this class was of some value to you. And now I will end the class. See you in the next class. Thank you.